Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another video. In this video, I will be doing an in-depth analysis regarding a family and the concept of, would you let a family member inherit from their father? But now if you are from a different father, would you let said family inherit as well from a separate father? Because this is a big question, right? To some, you might say, well, no, they're not of the same lineage, so technically they shouldn't inherit. And some will say, well, they're technically part of that family, which means they're a continuation of said family, which means they should technically be able to inherit from the father's wealth in that particular statement regarding said family. Now, as some of you in said family may know, there is a member not directly lineaged to one particular father, and that particular member has been given a chance at life, not from his father, but from a different father. That individual's name starts with a B. And now you might say, well, if we can allow it to happen for said individual to inherit, say, a lake of money, that was not his father's wealth, but a alternate father's wealth, simply because he was made of said family, he was then given a chance at life. He inherited money from a father that was not his, because his own was essentially not a Burns, you could say. But now when we dive into the present day and age regarding the same topic, would you let a son inherit from his father? And if he was raised by an alternate father, would you still allow him to essentially inherit from the same family, from his lineage? But now that you see the other children of said father might say, well, it's not fair that he inherits and we don't. A greedy standpoint, if you wish, to which that individual could say, you didn't suffer like I did. You had it the best compared to our other sister and myself. And even then, I still plan on giving you and my other sister, both of my sisters, wealth from inheritance of the true father, because you're still part of the same family, the same lineage, the same future line in the family. Because you see, in understanding the lineage of family, if you cannot secure the fundamental future of your family, you might as well let it die off now. And if we are specifically sacrificing members of family in order to assure making deals, or specifically sacrificing lives to maintain your own greed, well, there would be no such thing as familial lineage at that particular point, which you as a familial lineage person can understand. If everybody did that in the family, why do you think the family business is still running, and if it has success? Which relates back to the stealing of the money. And you might say, well, based on the previous so and so minutes of said video, you would then arise to begin to understand that one particular individual is meant to inherit from his father. and I was raised by a separate man. And this idea, based around that, and I'm saying this very carefully because I still have much appreciation for the life I was given, but based around this particular notion of assuring the future lineage of the family. If you yourself could give a man that was not of your lineage, as a Burns, inheritance as a Burns, meanwhile he does not share the actual Burns name. If you could do this for one man but can't do that for, say, Patrick, then it arises a question. What is the problem essentially? Is it because I'm different that you're not letting me inherit from my father, who's been dead for a year? Just about. And in saying that, and keeping me from essentially having a chance to survive life, which you yourself have not struggled the same way I have in life, which has given me perspective, is giving me knowledge and understanding of venues which can be given potential, and the idea of investment. And you might say, well, you're not just going to go blow all that money right away, are you? I don't know. How much are you spending that money yourself that's not even your money? And at which rate are you spending it? Well, you could say, well, little by little, because we have to be smart to preserve this familial name. Right. We have to be smart. Which means if sacrificing an individual's life to secure your familial name in your inheritance as a Burns, you would see you have zero familial value if this is where you stand on. And at this particular result, the fact that your very lineage is where you derived your inheritance from based on a Burns, and you have zero familial value as a result, I would argue you're not wealth, or you're not worth that particular money. And in that particular saying, why keep one Burns poor so the rest may stay rich, when one Burns can enrich all the other poor Burnses? Because essentially it's that particular stance on life. It's poor me, my father died before I was born. Poor me, my father killed himself. Or poor me, I never got to know my father, and I was abused by a different one. And now I'm left to rot because you yourself simply can't just acknowledge or tell the truth to Dave's son. And so do you see this guilt trip? Because I can keep this going. Because if you're sacrificing my life so you may enrich yours, I may gain nothing as a result. But I can tell you what I do gain. A peace of mind. Because you might all see now that the Burns family is not a family, it is a concept. Which people try to cling on to this concept regarding the wealth. And the more we cling on to this wealth, the more we lose our true self-image as a person, named as a Burns. Which in the lineage of this particular family, you see great man, great women, powerful men, and powerful women. And in this lineage, you have to take on a certain mentality if you wish to understand how to essentially place the meat. And in understanding how to place a meat, you can essentially see the exponential potential at which this meat placing or meat packing business can create itself, such as creating generational wealth. But in this generational wealth, it was based around one father letting his children inherit, which then resulted in familial lineage of familial wealth. Which now we get to one particular present day and age where this exact same family that inherited from their father is reluctantly and purposefully keeping an individual of said family from inheriting from his father that's been dead for a year. And so now, what might come of this? I don't know. I'm just one life. You guys get to hold the money. I get to suffer. You guys get to hold the money. I get to be a dishwasher. And in said opportunities, we then see where the value of life comes from. You're willing to sacrifice one of your own in order to stay rich. I'm willing to sacrifice myself so you all stay rich. And now in this mentality, we see the purpose behind the Patrick Burns grandfather. He ran out of money. And in his idea of how he was going to essentially be able to give life to his children, he said, the only way I'm worth anything at this point, I'm worth more dead than I am alive, and my children are going to be better off at this particular point. Was that truly a wise decision? I don't know, because apparently, based on that decision, we arrive now at the money-greedy little shits you Burnses are. You get to have wealth your entire life, and you keep the poor of your family poor so you may keep yourselves rich. Now, in terms of family meetings, how's the Burns Co. wealth doing these days? Because I sure can't seem to pinpoint where we are generating money at this point. I would argue the current board of directors is specifically liquidifying current assets to sustain their individual lifestyle, hence why they were giving themselves bonuses every year based on the Burns Co. wealth, which none of the rest of the Burns Co. members would see such bonuses. And the more they liquefy, the more they can give themselves bonuses, because off the wealth of the father's name, the initial, they're essentially, these board of directors, inheriting their wealth by stealing from the name, which once again we arrive here and now to the individual meant to inherit from his father, and we see a board of directors saying, we can't let that son have that money. It's not right for a son to inherit from his father just the same way we did from ours. If that is the current state of your mental affair as the board of director of the Burnses, I would argue your best interests are not in the well-being of the Burns family. And as a member of the Burns family, I would argue that we need to replace the board of directors immediately if this is their current standpoint. And now going forward, we arrive at the Burns meeting, where we now have a new shareholder. And as far as I can tell, it's my money that's being spent based on who the inheritance of said money was meant to go to, which now you as the Burnses are keeping said money and spending it for yourselves. If if you yourself got to inherit from your father, why is it that Patrick Burns does not get to inherit from his? Thank you.